Good evening, citizens. I'm Devoid. This is my dad, Revatheist, and this is Redacted, a live podcast where we talk about Star Citizen and its development.
Yeah, so today we have a super fun, action-packed episode for you where we talk about I don't know stuff. We're gonna talk about some stuff. Specifically, I mean, we got some things to talk about some general gameplay balance that we want to just kind of chat about. And then just kind of what's happening in the game right now. So we've seen recent Evocati patch notes.
Yep.
We've got some certain things happening in the PU right now that we can kind of talk about. So just kind of a free form night.
Yeah, so it's like you said, kind of a general discussion. Star Citizen is at a point right now where it's a hurry up and wait game. So there's a kind of quiet excitement happening. We're not seeing a lot of movement on the front end, but we know that there's a lot going on in the back end. So we're just it's a waiting game right now. So with that being said, there's some cool things going on in the PU right now, as Rev just talked about. Most notably being the release of the F7A, right, and the Overdrive events, which is how you. Uh, it's an event in game which you go through to acquire this upgrade. It's Am I explaining that correctly?
Yeah, so it's the F7A Mark II and the F7C Mark II, right? So they released the F7C Mark II, which I'm fairly certain is a new ship.
I think
Um,
so.
Basically, it's I mean it's an F7A. They've made some minor adjustments to it, so it's not really all that impressive that they've like released a whole new ship. In my book, it's like a tweaking of an existing version ship. But then the idea that they're putting out the military variant of it and the overdrive events that are leading up to it, I mean, they're kind of cool so far. Um, I know you said that you haven't done any of them yet.
I
Uh,
haven't. I've been very busy with real life, which sucks.
yeah.
So talk to us about
So
that.
sure. So far they've done three stages. What the first one was? What was the first one? Oh yeah, I remember. The first one was like a data thing. So it was a bunker bust where we had to go in and we had to extract data from the computers in bunkers that were overrun with Nine Tails, or excuse me, Xenothreat, overrun by Xenothreat.
Oh, okay, gotcha. That makes more
Yeah.
sense.
So we had to go in, we had to fight them off. Of course, they were spawning pretty regularly as you go. And the idea was, you hack a terminal, you upload some data, and there were five five rounds of that, and it got progressively more difficult, longer, more data, more things that you had to do up until the end of it. And I mean, it was kind of cool. I think it's the first time I've seen. Uh, Basically, it was kind of like a hack, kind of a what's
Like
the
an
word I'm looking
early
for?
iteration of hacking gameplay.
What's the word I'm looking for? Oh my
I don't
gosh,
know.
quest or contract or thing, right? Quest isn't right for Star Citizen, but it's whatever. It's
Mighty Quest.
yeah whatever. So I don't think I've seen very much, if anything, that's that's basically hacking. I guess there's some data contracts that you can get, but
You're talking like career
yeah,
gameplay loop.
so basically we had to go and we had to kill somebody, find a chip, use that chip to hack into the terminal, use the terminal to upload data to someplace. So it was, I wouldn't really call it hacking, but it was interesting
Mission
that
contract. I don't know what word you're going for,
mission,
but
that's the word I was looking for. Mission. That's the one.
okay.
That's the actual
Glad
word
glad
that I
we
couldn't
glad
think
we
of.
found it. This is a pretty good representation of how today's going to go, guys. So keep with us. We're moving quick
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. So that was fun. The second one, I needed. So the first one would have been very difficult to do by yourself, right? It really promoted some team gameplay because keeping the uploads going while keeping the enemies dead, and then also there was a phase in that where So like the upload would be interrupted, like the core on the computer would start overheating, and you had to
Oh,
reinstate cooling, otherwise the computer would, you know, crash, and it would be a big deal. So there were terminals all throughout the bunkers. Um, I could point
I
them out to you,
wonder.
but they were using
You,
some of the terminals out there, and
I'll take you up on that.
you had to find a
What?
terminal that had a code for you to give back to the person back in the server room, so they could punch that code in at the server in order to reinstate cooling to keep everything going.
Interesting. I
So
wonder
going,
if this is going to be representative at all of like data running gameplay.
I don't
Maybe
know,
where you've got
maybe as
this
far as
sensitive data or a processor that's doing work as you're trying to fly from one place to another, and you have to
maybe
maintain
maybe
something.
as far as obtaining sensitive data, right? Not necessarily the running of the data, but the obtaining of it, perhaps.
Okay.
Um, Interestingly, I mean, what that might look like for data running is that you'd have to make a link to your ship somehow so that you can get the data to your ship so that you could then run it. So I don't know what that would look like. That would be
USB? I don't know.
maybe it's a download and you take it. Yeah, that's possible. Maybe that would be off. That would be horrible. I feel like there's got to
You
be
think
a
so?
wireless way to connect to your ship. Anyway, so that was the first one. So then the second one was, what was the second one? It was
It was space battles. That's all
it
I know.
it was space battles, but so was the third one. And I can't remember what the second one was. You know what? We have it in our Discord somewhere, don't we? Somehow.
I don't know. You tell me. I've been MIA for a little bit, so
I'll just do Overdrive. Just look up Overdrive. I know it's on Spectrum. Um, but the second one was harder than the most recent one, because I had to have help for the second one, and I think it's because that was fighting hammerheads. But this
you
most
were fighting hammerheads. Yep.
Yeah, so and there were three stages of that, and then and the balance has really changed with the Redeemer. You can't solo a hammerhead for shit anymore. It used to be hard, and now it's just fucking impossible as shit. Especially when you got more hammerheads spawning and making things difficult for you. Anyway, and then the third one was, what was the third one? It was
Oh,
much
okay. So
easier.
here it looks like phase two, right, was bounties and the collection of a key to drop off. So you had to kill the ships, and you had to EVA to a ship,
That's right.
collect a key, and deliver the key to the location.
Yeah,
And the third stage of that was a hammerhead bounty.
yeah. Yeah, so the hammerhead was a real pain in the butt. I was able to do the first two, but the third one I wasn't able to do on my own. And then, so remind me, since you've got it pulled up now, what's the third one? Because that's the one that was active.
Yeah, phase three was 5 stages based in space. Looks like it says big space battle versus 4 hammerheads and about 20 other ships. So it's like a fleet battle. It looks like your objective was to basically just kill all of the ships, and that was it. Just pure carnage for phase three.
Hmm. Well, then
Phase four
maybe
is that
maybe
what
it
we're
was maybe it was two that I was able to do by myself. One of them I was able to finish off by myself, and one of them
so
I
it looks like
absolutely had to have help.
looks like phase three it gave you the completion if you just killed at least one ship.
That's why I was
So
able to do it myself, because I would just fly in, I would kill one, I would leave, and I would wait for it to be done. It was that last one that I was able to accomplish on my own, because people were coming in constantly to help. With that one, it was interesting because it wasn't shareable. There's no sharing that, right? So it was a single instance of, hey, go kill these hammerheads. Everybody took it. Everybody arrived. Everybody, did the thing. And actually, I can confirm you didn't have to even kill one. You just had to show up in the zone, and you got credit.
really, wow,
Yeah, because it's
good
like,
job, CIG.
well, because you know how the missions work. It's like, okay, next objective. Once you get to the objective of, okay, great, now kill the things, then it just said, okay, great. So now if they die, you participated.
Yeah, fair enough.
So
Fair enough.
super easy.
Um,
especially when you're not doing all the heavy lifting.
I'm not sure what phase we're on now. Are we still on a phase right now? Is this over?
Last I knew, we were still on 3. I haven't heard an announcement for 4 yet.
Okay. Well, I'll just kind of describe them then. Phase 4 is similar to phase 2, except that you are going to a comlink. You have to kill a handful of ships, and then you have to enter the comlink, kind of like the comm arrays over planets, right? From what I understand, there's like these trip mines laid out all over the place with the lasers coming out. We've seen them; those came out a couple of years ago, and then you have to destroy those, get past them, and then you need to initiate a comlink recovery, right? So it sounds like Xenothreat has downed a comlink and then trapped it, and then you have to go and turn the comlink back on. And hostile ships are going to spawn in waves, and because they're going to disrupt your comlink recovery, and then once you get the comlink up and then kill the ships, mission done.
Yeah.
Last phase is just a single stage FPS battle at Security Post Korea. It seems like they're hacking SPK. You need to stop the hack and then fend off waves of Xenothreat. And then it looks like your goal is just stop the hack, right? But it's probably going to be tremendously populated with Xenothreat, and with the spawn closets from a few patches ago, they're just going to continually spawn in.
Yeah.
Um, pair that with the squadron AI that's coming in, it's probably going to be terrible. Um, phase 6, I think, is the very last phase, which is basically there's FPS combat, but it's a pickup and delivery. Um, I don't know exactly what those items that you need to deliver are, but we'll find out when phase 6 comes out, I suppose.
Yeah. So right now, phase 3 should be throughout this week, with phase 4 starting probably on Friday.
Nice. Okay. So it's definitely a considerably longer event than we're used to. I think the one that has ran the longest aside from this would be Jump Town, right? And that's going to be like on and off. Sometimes we got those over the course of like 2 weeks or
Yeah.
such, right? But
Yeah. But so the idea here is that this one, I think, is going to run right up to the start of Invictus.
oh wow, very long then.
I think that's the intent.
Very long. Yeah.
So when is Invictus? It's like it's
May. It's like the first half of May they do Invictus.
yeah. Well, this is April, so that's another 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, so definitely the longest consistently active event that we've had. Um, it's also the closest thing that we have to a dynamic event. It's not, right? But the
Well,
idea that you are finishing this event in waves and each wave represents a different phase that happens as a result of player interaction, right? I think so far it's the closest that we've got to a dynamic event.
yeah. So we were talking before the stream that this could be kind of an indication of how CIG might handle uh, custom events or like event based. How can I put it? I mean, there's the quantum system, which is supposed to have deal with triggers for standard or stock uh, you know um, events, dynamic events,
Right.
which is one thing. But then there's also, like any MMO, occasions where they're going to say, "Hey, let's do something special," right? So this could be, kind of an indication of how they might handle that, or maybe this is even a model for some of the future dynamic events that we may see in the verse. So,
Yeah,
regardless,
it
it's
may
kind of
also
interesting
be
to see the progression that they're putting together here.
right. It may also be representative, and this is pure speculation at this point, of maybe how they intend to do things like ship releases in the future, right? Where this is supposed to be a sort of event where you complete it and then you unlock the uh, ability to purchase this ship, right? Whereas in the future, maybe they have ship releases or they have other content releases where it's locked behind this event, right? Or locked behind something that you do in game, where you have to complete it in order to gain access to it, as opposed to just being
Sure.
the stale. Here's a ship drop, go buy it.
Yeah.
Um,
So with that in mind, here's a question for you. Um,
sure.
I believe CIG has stated that anything that you could purchase or that you could pledge for will be available for you to obtain in game,
Yeah.
right? And I
Yeah.
completely agree with that. That's great. However,
Definitely.
what about the idea of a thing that is only available to people who complete certain events in game,
S-
right? So only certain people get it, but it's because they were there at the time the thing happened. There'll be another one later, and something else will be available, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of a neat thing that I've seen in other games. It could be something that gives an advantage. It could be something aesthetic. But what are your thoughts on that type of
I
a reward system?
I'm all for it, right? Um, I mean, there's two sides to that coin. And I'm kind of on the flip side of that right now. Whereas I don't have a predictable schedule. I'm working long hours. I can't get in and play every day. So that makes it to where, like, I've missed the first two phases.
You haven't missed them.
Is
You can
that?
still do them.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
good.
All of the phases are staying active right up until the last one is done.
Oh, that's good. Well, then I might have to get in maybe Thursday and try and bust some out.
Yeah, yeah.
But
You totally
oh, my
can.
allergies are driving me nuts. Um, I am a fan of it, right? Because it's a good way to promote actually getting people involved then and there in these events, right? It's also a good way to keep, in terms of aesthetics at least, it's a good way to keep things from being like everybody is wearing the same clothes or has the same ship, right? When you have just a basic amount of, say, ship paints, right? And there's a crowd favorite, everybody's going to have that paint. But when you have things like ship paints or armors or even ships locked behind events or variants or whatever, then as time goes on, you get to see people who have been playing the game for years because they're flying a ship with an old skin or something. You could be like, "Whoa, holy cow! Look at that! This dude's been here for 5 years, and he's still flying around in that ship, right?" And it's a really cool aspect. This is similar to what we saw in Sea of Thieves when we played a lot.
Yeah,
Remember, because Sea of Thieves had these time limited uh, skins, ship skins, clothing packs, whatever, where you would go through and finish particular quests, and then you would unlock these skins or whatever. But it was cool because it really gave you a sense of meaningful progression. Whereas if you missed out, then you missed out, and it
yeah,
sucks to suck.
yeah.
So I mean,
So
I'm all for it. Some people cry about it, but I like that idea.
cool. Yeah. So Cyrus talks about that's dope and all, but I want to make my own. So let's talk about that for a second, right? I think CIG has talked about how maybe it's a long time ago, maybe I'm making stuff up in my brain,
Long time
how
ago.
there could be some version of a game mechanic that allows you to customize your own paint, right? I can't see that being that you get to customize your own design, but I could see, hey, here are a few different designs, and you can customize your palettes.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree with you.
you know,
Because here's the thing, right? If they just give us the ability to paint our ships however we want,
oh, there'll be
then
dicks
that's
all across the verse.
not only that, but it's suddenly every ship skin they've ever sold in history becomes irrelevant, right?
True.
So they have, like, while I do agree that there needs to be a level of customization like that where you can pick your colors, right? And to an extent pick your designs and just change the colors of the palettes, right? It can't be as, I mean, there needs to be limits that give us reasons to continue to utilize paints that we've spent our real money for,
Yeah.
right?
So,
For instance, I
so
fly a yellow Corsair, right? If I could just suddenly go in game and then just paint my Corsair yellow, then what good is the yellow paint that I spent my hard-earned money on, right?
right. Yeah. So I think basically you should not be able to recreate a skin
Right.
that that's a pledge skin or an event skin or something, right? You shouldn't be able to recreate those because if you can, then yeah, that skin immediately becomes useless. Um, but to be able to do because those skins would maintain that prestige of, oh, they were here for uh
or alpha,
Citizen Con
like Cyrus is
2452,
saying.
whatever. Right. Right. Or for somebody who was in alpha, hey, here's a special. You guys were here for alpha. You been, so you guys get a special skin that we're not gonna make available in the live game. Oh, awesome. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I don't have too much to say on that.
Anyway, I'm just curious
Just
because yeah,
that. Yeah, he says like the ferryman said. Yeah, if there was just some way to separate them, I think would be good. But moving on, right?
yeah,
We
moving
talked
on.
a little bit about what's happening in the PU today. Let's talk a little bit about what's happening in the PTU today. Um, 3 days ago, on the 28th, there was a new Evo Coti patch, which has some pretty sweet stuff. I mean, we know pretty much what's going into 323, or at least what's planned to go into 323. We don't have to get too in depth about things like the
Yeah,
character customizer, mobile class
gotta
rework,
love the
star map.
public Evocati patch
Yeah.
notes.
Yep. So, I mean, we know about most of that stuff, right? We know about the crash recovery, ammo repooling, new visor lens, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
there's nothing in here I think that is unexpected, but it is nice to see that some of it has made it so far as at least the first round of uh, you know, public testing.
right. What I'm getting at is that there are some features that are new to this patch that we haven't seen before, which is kind of exciting,
Like
right?
what?
Well, one of them being we have officially fauna coming in, right? We have
Mm-hmm.
two animals that are in the 323 Evo patch,
Oh yeah, no, it is new fauna, the Copion and the Marok.
and the Marok. Yeah. So the Marok is sort of a pelican type thing. They fly in flocks. They are non-aggressive. They will disperse at interaction with people. Um, the Copion is sort of like a an alien hyena. They've got some pretty unique behavior in the sense of when they are alone, they are not hostile and they will retreat from players. But they typically travel in packs, and when they are in packs, they are hostile and aggressive and will fight you with melee attacks such as biting, clawing, etc. They also tend to come out around sunset and into the night, and so it is said that traveling through the forest or the desert at night is ill advised lest you be attacked by a pack of Copion. It's kind of
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. Have you seen the Copion?
I have. It's
Those are
kind
some derpy
of
cats. That's what they are. They're some
some derpy cats.
derpy
Yes.
animals. Hopefully they've
Yes.
got some better polygon stuff. They got some better skins by the time we see them.
Yeah, I'm sure that they're still working on it. I think a lot of it right now is just behavior. I'm sure that they will get updated because it does look a little underwhelming as far as the
Like
level of
Ultima
detail.
Online is what it looks like.
Yeah, it's not great, right? But it is exciting because it means that they're actually working on these things. And beyond this is they've got missions built around them. So you'll actually get contracts to go out and hunt these creatures and obtain resources. I don't know if that's going to be meat or skins or whatever, but there will be contracts to hunt and obtain resources from these creatures. So they're not
Yeah.
just going to exist. You're not just going to see one off in the distance and it's going to run away. There's going to be actual interactions here where not only are they coming after you, but you're going after them to hunt and take what they've got, which
Yeah,
is which is pretty awesome.
I feel some sort of way about that, I guess. I mean, it makes sense to do that. The only thing that bugs me about it is like name an MMO, any MMO that doesn't start with hunting.
Go kill 15 wolves.
Like, come on, give us
No, I
something
get that.
else.
I get that. Controller here is saying the horns are listed as valuable items. So maybe it's something like, do you remember when they talked about skills, right?
Yeah,
And how you could, get better skills. Maybe things like harvesting these
yeah,
materials from fauna is something that you can increase in skill, and as you do
sure.
it,
Yeah,
you can
and I have no doubt
get these
that
reasons.
the resources that you can get will play into what will eventually be the crafting system. right?
Crafting,
Because
definitely.
anytime you're dealing with the animals, you got leather, you got meat, so that's food, that's potential armor, clothing, and other items. Then the bones and the horns, and that's that's potentially drugs or some other thing.
Right, snorting copion bones.
Right? Yeah, it's like the copion horns could be. Um, do copions have horns? They said
Well,
horns.
I
Whatever
guess,
animal
I
has the
guess,
horns. Maybe the space cows. I don't know. But yeah, maybe it's an aphrodisiac.
yeah, or
Who
something,
knows?
right, or something. Um, but looks like they're going to be native to like savanna, snow, desert, and cave biomes. I think that's true for both of them. Let me see. Well, oh, here, savannah, snow, desert, cave, savannah, snow, desert, cave for both of them. So, I don't know if this means it's going to be on just across microtech, or if this means Hurston and microtech. Sounds like it might be both, which
Yeah,
is kind of
sounds
interesting.
like both. Probably not moons for lack of atmosphere.
Right, right. But this also leads us to future fauna. What's coming out, right? So we know that they've been working on things like the boreal stalker. If you're familiar with that, that's going to be the big yeti thing that lives in the snow biomes of microtech.
I
We
was not aware of
also
that. The thing I know
oh,
is the cows and the whales. That's what I know.
okay. Well, there's two important things as well, right? We got the boreal stalker. We have the space cows, which we saw in the CitizenCon demo for Star Engine, eating the grass on microtech. We have
And floating
the
and floating outside the window of Jared's
and floating outside the window of Jared's space office. Yes. Then we've got the storm walls, I think they're called, which are going to be the space whales on Crusader. There's other smaller flying critters around Crusader that I think have something to do, kind of like the birds eating the plaque of the crocodiles. I think these little critters are going to interact with the whales similarly.
Yeah, they should have
Um,
several flying animals on Crusader, I would think.
I agree. Oh, I agree. Um, they've got the pyro crab, which we know very little about, but we have seen it in pyro demos.
The
Not
turtles.
necessarily the turtles, right?
Sorry, I just
Um,
remember turtles.
no, no, it's okay. One of the more notable ones that gets talked about in waves, which has gotten some popularity recently with Dune coming out, is the Valacar, which is the sandworm, that big sandworm from Lear system. So I mean, we know there's a whole bunch of things coming, right? So the fact that they're finally putting some fauna in,
Yeah.
is that indicative that maybe they've got others closer to being out?
Yeah, no,
Who
I think
knows?
I think it's a pretty good indication. Just the fact that they're working on the fauna system, right? The fact,
Right.
because that opens up the possibilities of others. Once you've got one creature running around, well, we just create another skin, create another personality kind of template
Yeah,
for them. Boom, another
behaviors is
creature.
big. It's good that they've got different behaviors, and they have. I mean, it's not even so much as just a detect player aggressive behavior, right? This is, you know, these behaviors are sophisticated enough where the creature can realize, is it alone? It can seek other creatures, and then once it's with other creatures, they can then turn the hostile button on, seek out players,
Yeah,
and then attack them as a pack. So it's not very black and white. I mean, this is a pretty sophisticated behavior system
it
for
it,
this
it,
fauna, I
it,
think.
it it could be an interesting thought there also, right? So we have uh, herbivorous creatures like the
Hmm.
cows, etc., right?
Like the cows.
Well, they're in some place with so much flora available that they're grazing. If they eat all the flora, they're going to have to migrate, right, in order to have more food. Possibly that's something that they might have considered.
So here's I'm just reading chat here. It says, now I'm of a firm opinion that if you see the horn, you should be able to harvest it. What you can't see though, and isn't straight up binary is or isn't thing, is the bird's item being a material created internally. So I'd be okay with that having a random chance to appear. So I think he's talking here about like RNG. Like, I don't think what this is going to be is a World of Warcraft left click to loot screen where it pops up a menu where it's like, this is the loot screen, and you can collect those items. I think it's going to be a process where you've got a dead animal in front of you, and now you get to go through and attempt to harvest certain things, and maybe if you try to harvest one thing, it's going to cancel out an ability to harvest something else because you damage it or something,
You
right?
know,
It's
maybe. I
I think
wouldn't.
it's going to be more interactive than just a right click, oh, loot, 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 walk away.
Maybe as a future system, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that like tier 0, the first iteration, uses the new loot screen to say, hey, here's an animal, it's got some horns, it's got some teeth, whatever, things that are actually it's actually using, that it actually has, just like you can't loot somebody for a gun that they're not carrying. You couldn't loot an
I-
animal for something that animal doesn't actually have. But I could see them using the new loot interaction system, at least initially.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see, right? Guess we'll have to see. Um,
because of because
moving on
because
from
of
that
the
though.
yeah, okay, sure.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I just don't want to get like too crazy. There's only so much we could say about two fauna, right? Really quick, they did an updated water polish pass. So this is going to be the water tech that we saw in the CitizenCon demo, where it reacts to things like thrusters, and puddles will react to you running through it, and wind, and whatever, right? So fantastic water tech. It's also going to. You were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say that that's all fine and well, but until I can dive under it and swim, I don't really care.
I think that's coming, right? This water is going to react to entities, items, right? So it's going to work with the physicalized,
It's like,
like the replication layer items. So physicalized items, you can chuck them in, and it'll react with the water. Ship parts will react with the water. People react with the water, which means that if people are reacting with the water, then in theory, water will react to people. Am
oh,
I Am I getting that? Maybe I'm backwards, but in theory, eventually we should be able to swim, right?
yeah, I
Um,
mean, I want a rebreather, I want a scuba suit, I want things worth finding at the bottom of the fucking ocean.
I agree with you completely with that. Definitely. It would be. I mean, now we're talking way out into things we will probably never get, but like a submarine would be kind of cool.
Submarine would be super cool. A crashed ship underwater somewhere.
So actually, I will say, I need to find it, but there was mentioned somewhere. Um, I don't want to go too crazy saying this because I don't have a source to cite right now, but I believe that there is going to be missions about like shipwrecks in water where you have to go and like recover a black box or something from a wrecked
Nice.
ship, like where the
I am
bits and bobs
on
are floating on the water.
totally on
Um,
board, especially if there's like other lootable items, like it's a cargo ship that went down. There's cargo down
yeah.
there.
Now
Or
maybe I'm speculating based on something I heard somebody say. Like I said, I don't have a source to cite here, so I could be talking out of my ass, but definitely doable.
yeah.
Um, One more cool thing with the 323 Evo patch is that they added the currently used graphics renderer to display info, which means that they are actively working on implementing the Vulkan renderer. So they're working hard on optimization for that, which is exciting news. It's not really any kind of content or anything, but this is going to help performance, which is huge. So just wanted
Yeah,
to
I don't think I've heard a
throw
lot
that in
about the
there.
Vulkan renderer. Is that their next generation of rendering? Because they just
It's
did like the
it's an
Gen 12 or some shit, right?
Well, they did the Gen 12, the Vulcan, it's like an AMD thing, right? I'm not a software guy, but I we should look into it, right? Because Vulcan, it utilizes AMD cards as far as I know, and it's an optimization tool. They call it like it's a Vulcan API. I don't even know what an API is. You would probably know more about that.
I know a lot
But
about APIs. Yeah.
yeah, so it's the Gen 12 render and the Vulcan API. So maybe you can say something about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all an API is like it's basically a web service that sits there and takes in requests for information, retrieves it, and then sends it back to the person that made the request, right? So it's kind of like imagine a web page that doesn't render a page; it just gives you some raw data, right? So that's kind of what an API is. So you format your request, and you get information back, and it's that's basically what an API is. That's called an application. I don't remember what that API. It's just an interface, just it's a communication thing.
Yeah, so here is this is I don't know what I'm looking at when I'm looking at this. I'm just looking at comments in reply to the patch notes, right? And
Yep.
it's showing that for NVIDIA cards, you've got the DirectX cache and the OpenGL cache, and then for AMD cards, you've got DirectX, OpenGL, and then the Vulkan cache as
Hmm.
well. So, um, like I said, it's with AMD cards. I don't know exactly what it's going to do aside from helping out performance with optimizations, but that's in, and I like optimization, so that's exciting for me.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Um,
Absolutely. Anything that speeds up the game, reduces latency, I'm all for
yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. So, other than that, for 323, we're still looking at all the same features that we've been excited for the past few weeks. Um, Otherwise, that's pretty much it for what's going on in the game right now.
Yep.
So, a topic that was brought up to us that we could talk about today, being just a sort of general discussion day with nothing specific to talk about, one of our own Captain Daddy thought that a good topic to talk about would be balancing combat versus non-combat gameplay loops, right? In
Yeah.
the sense of on each side, you have, we like to call them Care Bears and Sweats, right? Where we'll call them the Care Bears get very, very upset when they don't have an outlet to play their PvE gameplay, whether that's PvE combat or trading or mining or whatever, without
Farming and
getting
crafting.
right, without interruption by the PvP crowd, right? And then on the flip side, we have the sweats who want every facet of the game to be a constant threat of PvP because that's the gameplay that they desire, right?
Yep. Right down
And
to those who
so
just want to watch the world burn.
exactly, exactly, right. And so the topic brought to us by Captain Daddy was, hey, how can we balance these two? Because we're playing Star Citizen, right? And it's important to realize that both of these facets are tremendously important to the overall gameplay experience of Star Citizen, right? The PvP, but also the blue collar jobs, the production jobs, the jobs that when you think of them, you don't think, gun in hand, bunker busting, shooting people in the face, right? So, in terms of balance, Rev, do you have any sort of ideas that you might like to see CIG implement that maybe they haven't yet or haven't talked about yet? Or are there
Well,
things that CIG has said or implemented that you're a fan of or not a fan of?
I can say there are some things that I hope I don't see.
Okay.
Uh, and that being zones that are like purely safe. Like right now we have like the armistice zones. And as a concept, I get the armistice zone. And given the current state of the game, I understand why they are the way they are, right? But ultimately, I think that I mean, if you just live in America these days, you know that there is literally no place you can go that is 100% safe from some schmuck with a gun, right? And I think that that's just a reality, right? And I think that that should be true in the verse. But if they want to have places that are essentially safe, the way to do that is to have appropriate security in place to deal with those people quickly. Uh, so what I hope they don't do is stick with any version of the current armistice zone system. I don't think there should
I
be any
agree with you
places that are
completely.
100% safe. Uh, there should be places where there is little to no benefit to somebody coming and being an asshat, where it's difficult for them to come and do that and be successful at it. Um, you know, and conversely, to have a lot of those places be conducive to the non PvP type of play. So again, the farming, the crafting, the building of your bases, so that if the only reason somebody has to come and engage in criminal or pirate gameplay is because they're aware that you've made a location that's lucrative for them to hit, that's cool, right? It would encourage the PvP players to stick around in those locations, to respond to your home locations. I think that's a positive way to deal with things. But until your site becomes worth, attacking, I, I I just hope they come up with something to make it so that those people just they what they, it's not enjoyable. I don't want it to be enjoyable for people to be to grief small underdeveloped settlements and places that are clearly PVE type locations.
I agree with you.
I don't know how you do that.
I agree with you, right? And so I think that a way you can do that, playing on what we already know that they're doing, right? We know that they have 3 levels of security in mind for various systems. We have a high security, we have a medium security, or high and low, and then no security, right? An example of these, right, is let's take Stanton. As far as I know, Stanton is a high security system, or it's supposed to be, right?
Theoretically, it's supposed to be, yeah.
Supposed to be.
I'm sure they'll
We've
ramp
got
it up a little bit once it.
I'm sure they will.
Yeah,
They just there's no reason to do it right now. It'll backfire. But in theory, you've got these 4 systems that each have their own police force. It's a high security system, and so engaging in things like piracy is going to be hard because the idea is that there are security stations posted all over the place. There are comm links around every planet, every moon, every significant location. The advocacy is close at hand should you need it, which is it kind of goes around the lore of the system, right? Because the lore says that they have the individual companies policing themselves because the advocacy can't spare the manpower. But then you go and get a crime stat 5, suddenly you have an advocacy fleet on your ass, right? So
yeah.
maybe they need
That
some
actually just made me think of something. I'm going to mention it before you're done.
yeah, that's fine. But my point is that these locations, just like you said, need to be difficult to pirate. They need to have, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here. We've got what might be considered established trade lanes, right? Which might be like popular travel routes between
Oh,
high
clearly,
high flow locations, right? It
Absolutely, planet to
it's always going to
planet, moon to
happen.
moon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, let's. I mean, we know that Microtech to Arc Corp might be like a popular trader up because Arc Corp produces um, a lot of uh, like ship components and stuff. Microtech is going to produce a lot of electronics. I'm sure that there's a lot of
sure.
similarities between part.
Hmm.
Right, they're going to need similar resources, and so you know maybe from a refinery, you'd be like, that's a popular trade route, Arc Corp to Microtech, right? And so now if you're running that route, right? In theory, there should be security checkpoints along the way, not where you need to stop per se, but where there is security stationed along that route where if you were to get interdicted, you could put out a beacon and then security should show up pretty quickly.
I have something, an alternative to that, right?
Let's hear it.
That's kind of where my thinking was. First of all, like stations along the route, I don't think that makes sense. However, ships making patrols along those routes, I do think makes sense. Second, if you get attacked outside of a comm range in one of these systems, actually in any, yeah, in one of these systems, I guess especially, um, there's no way for the person attacking you to get a crime stat. However, if you manage to get away and get into a place with a ComSat, I think you should be able to report them after the fact and say, hey, so and so just attacked me in open space between ArcCorp and Microtech. Here's my ship logs. Boom, crime stat.
So I'm going to get a little tin hat here. Okay. I like that idea. There needs to be a flip side to it, right? So I'm getting deep. This is probably never going to happen, but hear me out. You get attacked outside of comms range. Okay. You're a hauler. You've got a big load of shit. You're in your whole sea and you get interdicted by pirates. Boop, boop, boop. Suddenly you got pirates on your radar, right? I feel like if you want to report them for a crime, right, then there has to be some way to identify them, like a ship serial number or transponder code or whatever, right? So in theory, if you could scan them or capture their transponder data and then get away, you can make a report and upload, right?
Yeah, sure. I could
On the
see
flip
getting a little
side,
extra information.
if your pirate is smart and has disabled his transponder code and has no
Or
way of
spoofed it.
identifying himself or spoofed it, right? Has no way of identifying himself and then flips transponders before following you or doing whatever.
Hey, I'm all for that too. So long as it's not like the super easy, cheap way to go, right?
Right,
That's
right.
got to be something. There's got to be like some ability to actually make that kind of a change. Getting the materials or the electronics that allow it, which are probably illegal, which means you
I
have to go
have an
to a,
idea.
all kind. There's got to be some way to make that not just standard play for every pirate.
I have an idea, right? And I'm gonna go back to The Expanse, right? I don't know if this happened in the show, but it happened in the book where when I mean, it had to have happened in the show, right? When
Where
they
they change the name of
took
their ship.
where they changed the name of their ship, right?
Yeah,
They have to basically hack into the ship, which is, this information is safeguarded from all kinds of different ways.
yeah.
It's military tech. It's very, very hard to do. And basically, it was a situation of if we fuck up, the ship is bricked, right? Like you can't, like
That's right. Yeah, at
you
some
can't, you
point
can't do anything with it, right?
they totally changed their ship from the Rocinante to another one. I don't remember what they called it, but yeah, no, they totally changed their transponder, changed their ship name, and which was important for them because their ship was
A stolen Martian warship.
kind of stolen, but also
Yeah,
kind of legit salvage, and it hadn't been resolved yet. So
yeah,
they
because
had to do
yeah,
that.
they changed it from whatever the Martian ship name was
The
to the
Rocinante,
Rocinante.
no, the Rocinante was the original name.
No, the Rocinante
No,
was.
it was totally. It has to be. I'm going to look it up because I
You
could have
should.
sworn because later it's like they changed it back to the Rocinante. I thought.
Nope, but that's fine.
I'm
Um,
googling now.
you should. That's not the point, though.
I
My
know.
point is that changing transponder IDs in your ship should be equally difficult and should have a cost should you fail, and that cost should be significant. Because if you don't want it to be the cheap, easy, you know, the get out of jail free card, right? Then there has to be significant costs to that, and failure you should have to pay dearly, right? I want to say it was called the
The
because it was
Tachi.
on the Tachi, and that was on their mugs and on
Oh,
their jump shoots and
you're
shit.
yeah, you're right. Initially known as the Tachi. I stand corrected.
But it doesn't matter. All I'm saying is that it should take significant resources or skill or whatever to initially initiate that change, and then with failure, it should be a price that you have to pay dearly. Like maybe it fries all of your components, and you have to go through and replace them,
Sure.
or does something, or maybe it just fries your transponder. Period. And then going into civilized space, you're automatically red flagged for a crime stat because you have a fried transponder or something stupid like that, right?
yeah,
There's got to be balance to it.
I'll take almost any version of it's hard. So yeah, I'll take any of those ideas.
So anyway, that's one aspect of balance, right? Now let's talk about things like low security space, right? Because I mean that's something that we could do for high security space. Just make it incredibly difficult. Oh, one more thing, right? Incredibly difficult to pirate people in high security space. But
Without at least incurring some significant negatives. Sure.
right, but on the flip side, if you can pull off a high stakes pirate operation in secure space, and this is I'm talking like large scale, right? If you can pull off like a large scale, high stakes piracy operation, then it should be worth the reward, right? In a high security space, because there's got to be two sides to that coin. You can't
Sure.
because like you said, there can't just be a Care Bear zone where there's no reason to pirate people and it's just an automatic safe zone, right? There still has to be that slight chance, right? So
Yep.
if you can get together the best pirate crew in the verse and heist the shit out of Terra and get away with, 1 billion credits worth of bullshit, you should have the option to do that. But it would be very hard, very time consuming. You'd have to plan it perfectly and execute it perfectly, and then you'd get out, right? On the flip side of that, we're talking lawless space, There's very little I think that you have to balance there, except that with lawless space, what draws people in besides the carnage? You have to have valuable resources there to draw people in.
There, yeah, there needs to be a reason other than the carnage to be there. That's right. I agree.
So I believe, and obviously we haven't really had a chance to play Pyro, right? But I believe that there are supposed to be very mineral rich deposits still left in the system, such as on Pyro 2, I think it is, or in the Cairo cluster, which is that asteroid cluster around Pyro 3, I think.
Mhm.
Um, I think that they are few and far between, but when you find them, they are abundant, right? Where there's a shit ton to be had, and you can just like suck them up and make a bunch of money. And
Y-
so,
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of potential for a place like Pyro. Not only resources that simply haven't been gathered because it's a harsh environment, but also salvage. There should be tons and tons of salvage opportunity in a place like Pyro where shit's constantly getting blown up and shot down and stuff. Maybe not a lot of high value resources, but certainly construction materials, raw steel, ships that can be munched for just construction materials, and maybe even the occasional high value ship that was shot down by pirates that didn't realize what valuable cargo
or
was there, or yeah,
or a high value cargo ship that got taken out by a solar flare.
or that. Yeah, so many opportunities in Pyro. So and the thing there is that so I talked about the balance of having places where it's difficult and low value for piracy and for criminal gameplay. There is also the other end of things where it's difficult to do the non PvP gameplay, but the rewards should be equally valuable if you manage to pull it off.
I think that's sort of what we're talking about
Yeah.
now with, high value resources. And I don't just mean like minables, but like you said, cargo ships out there, or even maybe if Pyro's got rare fauna that has valuable resource, like we're talking about harvesting these copian horns, right? Um, I definitely agree, right? Like there needs to be an inverse to both sides of that coin. And so, yeah, I mean, there needs to be reasons for that, comfy, cozy guy who's just used to running his regular trader out to say, "Holy cow, this fucking alert that I'm getting for this valuable whatever the fuck in Pyro might just entice me to go there."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there definitely has to be that.
Yeah, lots of cool things like, hey, I wanna open up my own salvage yard on fucking Hurston.
Right.
That'd be kind of cool. Or that would be a
S-
relatively safe thing to do, right? So maybe it'd be
So I have
fun
a hot
for
take.
uh-huh.
I think that most players will naturally gravitate toward low security space. Not no security or high security, but I think that naturally the player base is going to just find themselves attracted to systems such as Nix, right? Where there's sort of a government in place, right? Where things, like there's a loose crime system, there's kind of security going around, kind of like how Stanton behaves now. Um, Places like Nick's, I think, are going to be that sort of balance spot where there's enough to do to make you consistent enough money without too much risk, where it's mostly worthwhile all the time, right? At least sustainably so, right? You can make a little bit of money. You still have a little bit of that risk factor that's kind of exciting when you're doing things, but you're certainly not raking it in like crazy. And
Sure.
I think that's just going to be like the natural order of things when we have this sort of division of systems.
Hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, I that makes sense. Um, I mean, there's obviously going to be people who tend to gravitate towards high security systems, the super care bears. There's going to be people who naturally gravitate towards the no security systems, right? But I think you're probably right that medium middle ground is it's going to be highly desirable to a large portion of the player base. Um, Aegis had said something interesting with regard specifically to salvage, in his hopes that they would make it less boring. Um, I think salvage in particular has, and this is for you, Aegis. I think that there's a lot of opportunity to make salvage less boring, and I have some ideas of how that might work. Do you have any thoughts on salvage in general, or in specific, or no?
You talking to Aegis here or me?
I'm talking to you.
Oh,
Aegis
okay.
Aegis can pipe
Um,
up too, but
so let's talk salvage for a minute. And actually, I think Cyber is watching. Cyberpunk with the Rec Raiders is watching. So this is a great time to at least touch on it, right? Salvage is boring right now, right?
super.
And I mean that's not necessarily a bad thing, but there have to be avenues that one like that a salvager can take to engage in something a little bit more exciting. What I think will sort of breed the excitement for salvage is when things like ship components and ship weapons are not readily available to be purchased in stores. When you can't just walk down the street to your local market and buy 4 size 5 guns for your Corsair, right?
Or at least once there are certain components that are not available on the open market,
Right,
right?
exactly. You know,
So
I
military components, for example, right? Like straight up military components, things you'd pull off of like the F7A, certain turrets, certain components. If it gets to a point where they're like, okay, you know what? These aren't sold. They're only available on actual ships that are actually out there. So first of all, you have to either defeat or find a ship that's been defeated with these components. They get out there, strip the component. I'm even for getting components that are not in a functional state that you have to repair, right? So for
I can agree with that completely, right? So, I agree. They did a similar thing with FPS weapons already. You can't go to the store and buy snipers. You can't go to the store and buy railguns or grenade launchers or whatever. Right now, yeah, I know in Pyro you can go to Checkmate Station and buy fucking railguns and shit, right? But that's not what I mean, right? That has its own risks. If you want to go to Checkmate Station and get a bullet in the head to go buy a railgun, fucking go for it, right? With salvage, right? And even with FPS weapons as we progress, I think that there just needs to be a point where you cannot buy certain things unless it's on some level of black market, whether that's reputation locked
yep.
or if it's player to player, right? I mean, I know that I fly a Corsair and I buy size 5 guns all the time, but I think it's absolutely silly that you can just go buy size 5 guns, right? I mean I mean, in what world can we do that, right? I mean, the UEE is at war right now. You think they're just gonna go put their size 5 guns for sale on some backwater planet? Fuck no, right? It's gonna be tough to get those, and you certainly can't just go down to the market and buy them. So, I think that salvage gameplay will really start to flourish when that is restricted, because then you're forced to go out and find them and obtain them. And then he who has the gold makes the rules. If you've got the material, suddenly you're a very rich person because then you can dictate market value, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you're
it's
right.
just very exciting.
I'm not necessarily looking to change the topic, but A just said something that reminded me of something else, right? It should be you should have to defend yourself while trying to salvage, right? So all of a sudden, immediately, my head goes to the derelict Idris, the derelict Hammerhead, the large ship that's just floating out there, and you're like, why is this derelict out there? It looks basically fine, and then you go on board and you find some fucking alien that has taken up residence that's trying to eat your ass.
Some alien has taken up residence, or it's a pirate trap, right? Or right, maybe there is like a toxic gas that's just floating around in there, right?
Yeah, so
And
many
you know,
opportunities.
there's a lot of shit going on, right? Furthermore, right, if you are, and I think they've got a little bit of this in right now, right? But if you do find salvage in even a low security spot and it is a military type vessel, you could expect that maybe the military is looking to come reclaim some of this shit, and you could be halfway through salvaging when suddenly, bloop, a recovery team comes in, and uh-oh, Now I have to defend myself. It really gives a reason for your reclaimer to be decked out in turrets, right? So
Real quick, hey Aegis, make me emojis, and if Dev and I both like them, I'll add them.
there's your challenge, bud. So I mean, yeah, I mean that's where I'm at on salvage. The same kind of goes with, I mean, mining. I guess not really, right? How can we make mining more exciting? Because that's I think mining is worse than salvage.
Mining is, yeah, yeah. There's got to be hopefully they do something to make mining better. I mean, it's simply making the mineable materials valuable for the purpose of like the actual economy will help. It won't make it more fun to do the mining, but it'll make it more interesting, kind of, in that the things that you get actually wind up improving the economy. But to have certain things that you can find in certain places, that are rare, that are location locked. I don't know. There's got to be something that they can do.
I think that they need to take this sort of quantanium thing that they've got going on, where it's a dangerous mineable, where it can disable you. Oh, wall text here. Salvage is boring at the moment. Honestly, salvage and repair, as we've been imagining it for years, is a very diverse and involved activity. We have to go in like divers, assess the loot, work to retrieve it, and as of now, salvage is a great group activity, but without a dedicated team, it is just not stimulating or involved. If they introduce things like mining has, like where it can go wrong and ruin the haul, I think that'd be a good start. I think. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of that's kind of what I'm about to say with mining, right? Is with this quantanium thing, it's a dangerous material, right? It can explode and blow up your ship. With salvage, just touching back on that really quick, if you were to hit something like a power supply, then if it went kaboom, that would be crazy, right? Because that would give you a chance to have to get out and go explore the ship and check on the power supply, make sure there wasn't still something powered up, right?
Right.
Because
Or
it's
you're
one
trying to
thing,
pull a power supply and it's still juicing something. It's like, oh
right?
crap, I
Still
didn't shut it
juice
down
something,
first.
or if you're trying to hull scrape and you puncture a quantum fuel tank, right? So
Yeah.
like, can you
Yeah.
can you
So it was,
purge the quantum fuel tank? Can you take that fuel? Can you suck that fuel out somewhere and put it? I mean, there's a
yeah.
lot
So
of
it's
lot of
like
ideas
totally
that
like it's
cyber
like a,
is
mhm.
right.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
cyber's got a great point there. But let's go back to mining for a second, right? I think that there needs to be multiple dangerous, like all of the high value stuff needs to be dangerous in some way. Quantanium is really the only one right now where if you fuck up, it blows up, and that's fine, right?
Oh, like
But
how about some things that are high value, right? Hand mineable only, but the places where they are almost always just riddled
extremely
with
hostile environment.
like creatures, like because they've got creatures coming in now, so you have to constantly be on the watch out for these fucking these pack animals to come and fucking
So
get out of my
I
get
like
out of
that
my
idea. I
territory.
like that idea, right? Some people don't realize like why is Hadanite so valuable. The reason Hadanite is so valuable is because it's harder than diamond and they use it for industrial tools, cutting tools and things like drills and saw blades and stuff like that. Like it's very very hard, harder than diamond. So it's the new standard. So that's why it's so valuable. So yes, if they had things like Hadanite deposits on either planets or moons that had extremely unforgiving environments, such as Aberdeen, right, or worse, or like you said, if it's just riddled with creatures who attack you constantly, where you either have to stay strapped or get clapped, right? Then yes, that's definitely also going to make things more exciting. In
Yeah,
terms of
good night,
ship
cyber.
mining, good night, dude. In terms of ship mining, though, maybe some materials will give off radiation that can damage your ship
Hmm.
if you're not properly shielded, right? We know quantanium is volatile, so it can explode. Um, shit, maybe some future space age material is like super super magnetic and it just like sticks to your ship and then renders it all like it fucks some things up, and so you got to like be careful about how you break it down,
Like a
like there's
Minox. I want Minox.
Minox would be cool. Oh man, but I mean, there's lots of cool stuff, and hell, with these discussions, maybe it's time to take to Spectrum and start posting some of these ideas. I love bouncing off with all you guys. So
Yeah.
yeah, well, we've talked a little bit, we've speculated a bit, we've talked about what's in the game. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we kind of end our general discussion night? It's been great so far.
No, I think we talked about a lot of great things. A lot of things we haven't talked about before, which is always good. So,
It's
no, that's
always
that's
good.
about it for me.
Alrighty. Well, for those of you who have been here before, thank you for watching again. For those of you who haven't, if anybody, we've got our socials all along the bottom here. We've got one of our trusty lieutenants, Pyro Mercy. He's running our social media pages. He's posting some quality content recently. We've also got our Discord, which is going to be discord.gg/pfcs. So you can hop in there. We're talking about
Stop
this kind of
by.
stuff all the time. We play every single night. We've got daily events. Tonight was Monday Maneuvers, where LT Hedonist went through and taught people how to fly. He's just teaching basics like communication. Nothing too crazy. We're not joystick jockeys. We're just trying to have a good time. So, again, check out our socials, and hopefully we'll be here next week as long as I can find a day off to do it. But thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Yep. See ya.